back in session. Mr. Crumpler, I'll let you start this matter up.
Okay. The same committee that was working on the noise ordinance also took a look at minimum housing as a potential ordinance. In the county, we currently already have a manufactured housing setup ordinance, has some restrictions in that ordinance, and it deals with used mobile homes and the condition that those used mobile homes must be in when they were set up. Never really addressed any other type of housing. Of course, new construction is governed by the building code, but any existing housing or older housing doesn't have to meet any standards. So the committee felt that to be fair across the board on all housing and to not single out just manufactured housing, we should take a look at a minimum housing code. It's been talked about for years in the county. That's been discussed previously. So we have worked on this January 21st. We started working on this ordinance, putting it together. That's the time frame. It has been revised multiple times by that committee. It's been sent for legal review. The Building Inspections Department was part of the committee that worked on it, so they have reviewed it. I'm not sure. He's busy with damage assessments now due to the storm. He was going to be here, but Mr. Steve Stroud, the inspections director, but he was part of the committee that worked on it, and he has reviewed it and been through it multiple times. Key points in the ordinance: we deal with the application of the ordinance to all types of construction, not just manufactured housing. We deal with minimum standards for site-built houses, the structural condition, the plumbing, the heating, the electrical, the ventilation, the standards for space, the control of insects, rodents, and infestations. We deal with the minimum standards for manufactured housing, which is the HUD requirements, the tax permits, the exterior condition, doors, windows, underpinning, the structural condition of the home, electrical, heating, plumbing. And then we talk about the responsibilities of owners and residents and then the county's responsibility. So, like I say, it was reviewed. It's also being reviewed by the Seymour Johnson Air Force Base for their comments. I have not received comments back from them though, as of yet. Well, let's move in. We'll try to, I know a lot of this is very wordy, but it's just stuff you need to have to define definitions, just like the gentleman earlier, define the bird. We try to go through here, set the definitions, and define these definitions. So Section 1 gives us our purpose, and I will read this. It is hereby found and declared that there exist in the county of Wayne dwellings which are unfit for human habitation due to dilapidation, defects increasing the hazards of fire, accidents, and other calamities, lack of ventilation, light, and sanitary facilities, and due to other conditions rendering such dwellings unsafe or unsanitary and dangerous and detrimental to the health, safety, and morals welfare of the residents of the county. And then the other purpose, item B, is to protect the health of those citizens, and it is authorized by the general statutes that the county can do that. Section 2, it moves through the definitions. I won't go through these. If you have any questions on any particular one, just bring it to my attention. It talks about the cellars, dilapidated, the term dilapidated, what a dwelling unit is, different definitions, manufactured home definition, modular home definition, plumbing, or public authority. We get down to Section 3 is the minimum of standards of fitness for dwellings and dwelling units. Every dwelling and dwelling unit used for human habitation except transportable or temporary housing, excluding mobile homes, are held out for use as human habitation, shall comply with all of the minimum standards of fitness for human habitation and all of the requirements of Section 4 through 8 of this ordinance. No person shall occupy as an owner, occupant, or let another to occupy or used as human habitation any dwelling or dwelling unit which does not comply with this ordinance. So section 4 gets into the minimum standards for structural condition. It talks about the walls, floors, and roofs shall not be rotted, deteriorated, or damaged. Supporting members, foundations, the foundation walls, stairs, porches, other things that are attached to the dwelling, egress and ingress of a dwelling, the roof, flashing exterior walls, basement walls, exposed to weather shall be constructed and maintained as to be reasonably weather and watertight. There shall be no defective chimneys or deteriorated or in danger of falling. And of course, it talks about the flooring. Section 5 is the minimum standards for the basic equipment in facilities, talking about plumbing, the plumbing systems. Each dwelling shall be connected to a potable water supply. Each one shall be required to meet the state building plumbing codes. Plumbing fixtures shall meet the state plumbing code. They shall be located within the dwelling unit and accessible. The heating system, it details the heating system. Central or electric heating appliances that meet a 68-degree Fahrenheit, 3 foot above floor level. That's what the state building code requires. It also talks about other heating facilities, other options for heating with the use of a sufficient fireplace, chimney, or flue or gas vents, whereby heating appliances may be connected. Item C talks about the electrical system. Every dwelling unit shall be wired for electric lights, convenience receptacles. It talks about the number of outlets per room, lights per room, making sure you have adequate electrical supply for each dwelling. Section 6 talks about the minimum standards for ventilation. Except when provided mechanical ventilation, every habitable room shall have an operable window, the size of which shall not be less than 8% of the floor area of that room. Bathroom and water closets, every bathroom and water closet compartment shall comply with the light and ventilation requirements for habitable rooms.
Can I interrupt
Okay.
you here?
Yes, sir.
I know this has gotten real technical, but this came out of the building code, and that's why we had Steve Stroud in here to make sure it incorporated what was already in the code.
Right.
I mean, you know, when you talk about 8% of the room area and
Yeah.
so forth, that is actually the verbatim per code.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And you would also have in a bathroom ventilation requirement, either a fan unit or an operable window. Minimum standards, it also talks about from the state building code, the room sizes. These are very minimal room sizes. Section 8 gets into the dealing with the standards of control for insects, rodents, and infestations. Talks about screens in the windows. Yes, sir.
Under section 8,
Mm-hmm.
are we talking about, are we talking about the entire lot or just the house itself?
Just the house, just the structure.
And I was waiting for you to get to rodents because sometimes rodents live right out near the house.
Right.
And there are some places in my district that have grown up, yards have grown up that affects the house, but it's not the house itself, it's just not the house itself.
Right.
It's the lot and the house.
I think the committee is taking a look at some rules that would apply in residential areas only.
But was not incorporated into this.
This is just
We
doing,
wanted to only talk about the actual structure itself. So there were other outside issues that needed to be addressed, but we didn't bring them up here.
But wouldn't the public health address that?
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
This deals specifically with the structure, the condition of the structure, the condition of the plumbing, the electrical. You want a minimum standard there for people that are living there or occupying these residences, whether they be adults or children. So, And then we have an existing ordinance, a manufactured housing setup ordinance. If you were to adopt this, set a public hearing, advertise it, and want to adopt it, you would be canceling that other ordinance, because we're basically taking that ordinance and have incorporated it into this minimum standard here in this ordinance. So Article B gets into the manufactured home setups. And it talks about, and they've had these types of rules already in place for manufactured housing, dealing with the interior structure, floors being rotted, windows in place, lights, exposed wiring, those types of things. So item one up there, or section one under minimum housing standards, it must meet HUD construction standards. That's July 1st, 1976 manufacturing date. That's what's allowed in the county. Anything after that, it talks about the exterior siding. It talks about any repair work should be made consistent with the original construction. Talks about the underpinning, the requirement for underpinning, the curtain wall skirting must be interlocked. It talks about how it's attached so that it will prevent it from being blown out and blown into across the yard and spreading insulation across other people's yards. Talks about the doors and windows being intact, no missing glass. Talks about the permanent steps for manufactured home must meet the North Carolina Building Code at the front and rear. Talks about electrical devices, switch receptacles, no exposed wiring, everything operable there and in a good working order. Talks about the sections of floors, ceilings, and walls must meet the sections for site-built dwellings, so there's no discrepancy there between the two types of construction. Plumbing must meet the same codes as the site-built. Should have operable plumbing. Same thing for electrical. It also states in here that any home set up in Wayne County, they must have a proof of a tax permit from where the home was located before it was moved here, to prove that it was on a tax roll or tax record somewhere. Gets down to the responsibilities of the county in Article D. This is the director of the building inspections or his designee that will here be designated to enforce the provisions of this exercise. There's four ways to work on this. On the request of the county manager, a public officer, or a written request of 5 adults, residents of the county, a complaint could be filed against a homeowner or a dwelling for the conditions that the dwelling is in. So I just want to be clear, clarify that. The county manager could initiate a request, a public officer, or a written request of 5 adult residents of the county. The direction or the inspections or his designee shall investigate the dwelling and the dwelling conditions in order to determine the dwelling unit is unfit for human habitation. Okay, county should take action together with appropriate departments and agencies as may be necessary to effect the rehab of the housing which is deteriorated. And then we keep a record of the results for that inventory of those dwellings.
Could I expand a little bit there? The working group did not want, our building inspections just haphazardly going out into the community trying to look at problems or create inspections and such. We did not want another level of bureaucracy. So basically, in implementing this, it is complaint-driven only, and it must be from 5 adult residents. So as you can see, it's just not a matter of somebody gets upset with the landlord is going to call in and make a complaint that it does not meet the minimum housing code, and so all of a sudden we've got inspectors going all over the county over that. It takes 5 residences, or the county manager, or a public officer.
Because we may have, when we have a social worker going into the home or something, if they feel like it's not safe, then, and that's why that's in there, so that if we needed to on there, because they've been in it and they don't think it's habitable, then they would get in contact with you.
Sure. Mr. Bell.
Just need to ask you a question. You know, with that scenario, you may never get a condemned house removed, because it would get, you know, if they're neighbors, it's gonna be hard to get neighbors in a community to,
But if in fact it is determined that it is a problem, then the county manager or a public official can in fact go
I
ahead.
guess my question I'm trying to ask, why would you take that away from the chief inspector if he just happened to be riding down Arrington Bridge Road and see a house that he
Because
knows?
He could do that.
Well,
He's a public-
he's saying our other public official, he
Oh,
could do
okay.
that.
Okay.
He could do that.
He could do that.
We just wanted to make sure that we were not creating a whole new level of bureaucracy here. We wanted to make sure that it truly was a problem with minimum housing. So we put some safeguards in there for that reason, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, moving on. It talks about the power of the building inspector, what his duties are as far as making the inspections. Moving on to page 93. Talks about the procedures for enforcement. Goes out, makes a preliminary investigation, and gives the notice of it's not in compliance. They hold a hearing. It goes into that legal language. I will not go into detail on that. It talks about the failure to comply with the order, the procedure after the hearing. The homeowner is given the opportunity to restore the structure and make it compliant, and that's what we would wish to happen. But it does have some penalty enforcements. They can appeal any finding of the building inspector on this compliance. The owner can appeal it. It would go, they can appeal it, and if they meet a certain 10-day deadline to appeal it, that would go before a housing board to be named by the commissioners. Moving on into the penalties. You could condemn a property and make repairs, and those are alternative remedies. It talks about the Housing Appeals Board, and it talks about a conflict with any other ordinances that are in place or the state building code. So it is a violation penalty. Section 11, it shall be unlawful for the owner of any dwelling or dwelling unit to fail, neglect, or refuse to repair, alter, or improve the same, to vacate, enclose, or remove and demolish the same upon order of the inspector duly made and served herein provided within the time frame specified in such order. And each day that any such failure, neglect, or refusal to comply with such order continues shall constitute a separate distinct offense. So, if you have any questions about it, that's very wordy in that enforcement section there about the appeals process, but there is a process that a homeowner can appeal to the housing board that you would have to name, and they could try to get some second opinion on that. But there is a process there. Your ultimate goal there is to get that home back into a habitable condition and safe for the residents.
One thing I think we failed to state on the front end of this, and that is we had charged Mr. Crumpler in reviewing the existing ordinances of other counties in the area that have implemented a minimum housing ordinance, and in fact, they have been in place for some time. In other words, they've worked the bugs out of it. So we have patterned ours after some of those county ordinances that are in place and have been in place for several years. And I think we failed to say that because you did a great deal of effort and work and trying to reach out to other counties and get their input on it in directing a working ordinance.
That is correct. It's a combination of multiple counties, then our working group modified it, as they saw fit.
Okay, any questions of Mr. Crumpler? Floor is open. Mr. Parker, you reviewed it, given you a stamp of approval on it.
I've made a few suggestions that have been adopted.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
Just, I think this is another fine example of our staff doing a good job.
Well, they have done a great job on it. With that in mind, we would like to go ahead and try to set a public hearing on this at our next meeting.
Let's
Need
do
a motion.
We need a motion to that effect. Would somebody like to make a motion? We have
So moved.
Yeah.
I just made it.
You just made it? Okay. Commissioner Bell has made a motion. Any discussion on the motion that we have a public hearing on this ordinance at our next meeting, which will be at 9:30 a.m. on
November 1st.
November 1st. November 1st. November's here already. God, I know.
Thanksgiving.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? Did not, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Okay, is there any other matters to come before the board? Any more comments?
Yes, so before we go,
Don't you make that motion? Go ahead if you want to make that motion. Now people are gonna say, what motion did he say not to make?
no, I have a few friends out there, I better not do that.
Okay, we got a motion to adjourn. So moved, all those in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, we are adjourned.